So here's a view of our middle union piece. So right now we have this threshold we talked about. And what we have is a platform that is at its maximum width, 16 feet wide. That brings people all the way out to an overlook, an edge, actually over Western Avenue. 2 elevator towers to connect down to the bottom, and 2 stairways. So we looked and studied a number of options preserving the existing Four Seasons stairway. We didn't go that way for a lot of reasons, after a lot of thought, because we did not want to erase it lightly, because it's not that old of an improvement. But what we wanted to do was have a really legible connection that connected from the waterfront, and this was really the alignment to do that, as this connects right up to our lower union improvements. But to me, the thing that I'm excited about with this is, yes, there's the elevator there, and yes, there is this stair there, but there's about 5 or 6 different ways that you could choose to go up this structure now that I think will be really rich. And the easy one is to think, well, we'll walk up here. But now we've added a second stair that actually will connect from the platform back down to Post Alley, not just Western. There's a little eddy or a landing that we hope to turn into an eddy here in the middle. So you could walk up this way and walk back. You could walk up the street to Post Alley and walk this way. There's any number of ways you could use this. We think the idea of having a stair connection to Post Alley is really valuable. So that's kind of, again, and you're going to see more drawings of this, so I'll have more chance to speak to it. Do you want to add anything, Marshall?
I just want to make sure we have time for questions.
Oh, okay. So here's another view from Post Alley, from the corner of your building, looking out on grade at Post Alley. The view looking up, and again that landing in the middle, and looking up from Western Avenue.
There's no parking all along that street?
That's correct. There's not going to be parking on that street now. And what you're seeing here is what we call lid off, which is what's happening. This dashed line is the extent of the bridge above. These are the existing street trees here. Here's where we're trying to put more trees in. But basically, it's taking that existing, where the curb is now, but it would be flush. We'll still have that same drive aisle there to serve the Four Seasons, to serve Post Alley, and to serve your building. And then underneath our structure, we have a space for a program element. We don't know exactly what that is yet. One of the things we really want to do is spend some time figuring out what we can use that's useful there, but also be really mindful of homeless challenges that we know are very real. And those are things that we'll sort out post 30%. And then a great crossing over Western. I should point out that with Western, we're maintaining the same width of lanes and bike lanes, but we're taking away the parking space that's there now on this side, or that lane that's not used really for parking, but so we're bulbing it down, but the same bike and traffic lane width would be there.
Just at the intersection. So
just at the intersection.
It makes the
exactly.
crossing to narrow the crossing.
Exactly. And Lower Union is I think much more straightforward in that it bridges from Western all the way out to Alaskan Way. Again, whoops. Again, I think great views from here. Again, an elevator option for those who prefer to take that way, but we anticipate it's a much wider stair. This stair, we have the same stair capacity on Middle and Lower Union, but here that's combined to a much more gracious stair, because we do think there's going to be a more intuitive desire line to use this, because it's a less intimidating height. Surprisingly, this single elevator will actually offer more capacity than these doubles because it's more height, so there's plenty of elevator capacity there. There's a view looking out towards Alaskan. Again, the idea of lid off. Whoops, that's with.
It's actually lid on.
That's lid on. Sorry about that. That's lid on.
Yeah.
I don't have lid off, but I apologize. We're trying to get some planting in there that we think would be really nice, but I think a key part of this is this remains a functional street, just as Upper Union is right now. So it would be enhanced, it'll have nicer paving, but it'll still be serving freight, and it'll still be serving vehicular access to what will become a redeveloped Seattle Antiques Market site. And so here's a view again looking at Lower Union. You can see how our our tideline paving comes into a point and then transitions to a different paving. Middle Union, the threshold back to the Four Seasons. Lighting is a key part of our concept. We don't want to flood this with a lot of foot candles, but we think it's a beautiful structure, so it's going to provide some great lighting opportunities. And in particular, we want to play with the lights. The elevator towers are glass towers that we think will have a great glowing quality when lit from within. Yeah, one of the things we're trying to do is try to make it a little more dynamic. So the idea is that the cabs themselves will be lit, but that also the voids under the elevators might be one color, like a blue, and on top a white. So you'll actually get this sense of the elevator's movement up and down. That would be a playful element as part of the lighting concept.
We may have enough play on light.
I think, and to be fair, that's actually one of the reasons why we're being pretty, we think, understated with it, with the rest of being handrail lights that will just cast foot candles down but are not about changing light. And even these aren't about changing light, it's actually about the elevators moving up and down. We'll just expose different amounts of the different colored light.
Excuse me, Guy, I just wanted to, what I was trying to say is that they will be down lighting onto the sidewalks and the structure.
Oh, okay.
To get, to light up an area that's.
Okay, did everyone hear that? So in addition to lighting the deck surface, we're lighting the areas under the bridge as well. Sorry about that.
What we're really looking for is
Showing any poles here, there's not any high fixtures. So a view of what that starts to look like at that threshold, reimagined.
One thing that's, I think, worth noting about that is some folks have pointed out rightly that there's some congestion you get out here with people crowding out there. Sometimes it affects movements in the Union Street end there. This will actually help that because it'll expand out the public area for use with that new deck that you see in the image there. So it'll help open up that street end and the lookout that you have right there.
I think exactly. This will still be a nice place to be, but there's really going to be a desire line to get out there now. So all of a sudden, the great space as a destination and a hangout will actually be expanded to get out there, and I think really all along here.
Does the elevator need to go to that height? What's happening with the area above the elevator overrun?
I will attempt to answer that with the huge preface that our architect and elevator consultant is working on that. But the answer I'm going to give is yes, because that's based on our preliminary engineering of what would be required for, I think it's called the head house, I'm not sure, but all the mechanical above the elevator.
Yeah, the mechanical room on this is required to be attached to that elevator core. You probably, as you I'm sure know, David, with the design of the elevator, because of the utilities under the street right of way, under Union, we cannot bury it at the bottom end. So that was the solution that worked well for that particular situation. I mean, we're not showing you the image of the utility footprint in Union, but literally almost every square foot has these large city light duct banks to the substation. So it's challenging.
So I wouldn't want to say we're showing it bigger than it needs to be. I think that we've
normally with the pit put on top, which is essentially what you're doing. It's 27 feet above the last served stop, and that looks like that's what they show.
You know your elevators. I'm impressed.
Excuse me.
Yes.
I just want to quickly bring up a comment with regard to the lighting on the whole elevator tower that you've expressed. It's one of the issues that 98 Union has been dealing with, or several of them, frankly, is light. Being bombarded by light from the Sam Mir project and its vertical lighting, and then also the Ferris wheel. So I'm sure you've heard about some of this, but that'll, I think, be a big concern for us.
Yeah, I think that's something we would definitely come back. One of the many things we'll come back and want to talk more about is the specific lighting levels and what treatments are being used. The goal is not to have a lot of general illumination, but to make sure people are aware from First Avenue that there is a way to move back and forth here. It's not to light up the area, and I appreciate the issues with the wheel.
You know, that, given that it's mainly dark around it, 2-foot candles would do everything
Yeah.
you need to do on that.
That's the kind of discussion we need to have, and we just haven't gotten to that level of design.
Well, and I think that's also
Yeah.
what you're seeing here. This is about luminosity and glowing, so it's not about foot candles and it's not about glare. Hopefully you would never see a fixture, you would actually just see the luminosity of this glowing glass box. In this instance, again, clearly the elevator is below that, so any color change would actually happen below that. So this would be about a glowing glass box there. But it's not trying to be an overly bright beacon, and I feel confident that we can design that to a light level that wouldn't be imposing, but certainly that's something we can discuss. But what you're also seeing is the idea of an integral rail lighting, that is providing all of the light to the deck, which is just from the railing down, so that there's no glare associated with it, and there shouldn't be any spill light associated with it, and things like that.
And the stairs are planned to be washed.
Yeah, and the stair treads are planned to be washed as well, but again, all minimal, not whole lighting. The view from the end, I think it'll be a great place. A view from underneath, so, we showed people walking in the street, and someone's not going to be happy with that.
That's
but-
the way it will be.
Well, I think that, in all honesty, I see it that way now. So I think it's sort of acknowledging it that it's that way now.
When they're not fighting with 4 garbage trucks that are here at once.
One
So-
of the things
so-
I
go
would
ahead.
just mention about that is, I think right now when you're coming up or down in a vehicle, it's apparent to the pedestrians that are using the street that they're on a street.
Yeah.
Whereas we've gotten word from other residents driving down Post Alley, which is a challenge, and most of us don't do that.
Yeah.
But people think the car is going where the car does not belong, and they take out, a little hostility towards the drivers, thinking, oh, you're not supposed to be coming this way.
Yeah.
It doesn't strike the pedestrian that that's actually a legitimate road.
I think that's absolutely a legitimate concern, and I think that's something we need to find a way to address post 30%. And I think, for example, if you start to see it here, you'll see there's a different kind of paving with a much more kind of intensity and higher frequency of detail here in the pedestrian space versus simpler out here. So I think there's all sorts of cues we can use to inform that. But I think that that's an absolute fair tension that we need to address.
One other following that statement is that the more space you provide for yet undetermined activity would also, because of the street is only dictated by pavement change or pavement color change, that you're going to see a lot of activity go out into that street and people stopping and putting things down there, and that's going to block vehicular traffic coming out of that area.
Yeah.
Signs don't do any good because tourists can't read.
Yeah.
And you just, you have to figure out a way to maybe not make that such a public space.
I think there's a fair tension there, and I would say at 30% we hear you, and that's our job to find that balance.
It's a good point. There are a lot of streets that have some of that use with the curb. It doesn't have to be curbless to get the kind of experience that we're hoping to get here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hard road.
Here's a view from Western looking out. Again, we think this is going to be a fantastic civic element and a fantastic civic space. We're very excited about that. At night. From Lower Union, I think one of the wonderful things that we have is we'll have, just as we have this threshold at Upper Union looking down at Middle Union now. Right now, the view from Western looking down into the pit is not super nice, but we think this is going to be one of the great surprises that comes out of this project, is having a wonderful edge and a wonderful destination to look at. Right now it's the viaduct. And once you've gotten to Union Street Pier, you're in this wonderful place. And what's interesting about this project for me, and I think the design team, is when we started working on this, it was all about how do we get people from downtown to the waterfront. I think, in all honesty, what's emerged is that's the easy story. We think it's going to be actually a cooler experience to go from the waterfront back up to downtown.